Welcome back. My name is Chris, and in this video, I'm going to be doing a review of PayPal Braintree. And if you're not familiar with it, Braintree is a product of PayPal that works within NetSuite to handle payment processing. So by payment processing, I mean any type of purchases that could be on really three different methods. One would be through a credit card, one would be through ACH or automated clearinghouse, and really that's more common for B2B transactions or larger purchases. And then of course, PayPal has its own external site and tool that purchases can be made through. And if you have the Braintree basically installation through your NetSuite, any transactions that occur on the external PayPal site would generate those transactions within your NetSuite instance. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through how Braintree works for credit card purchases as well as ACH. I'm not going to cover the external PayPal site just because I do NetSuite tutorials and that's obviously a completely different site. So I'm going to stick to credit card and ACH. So let's take a look at this. So here we are in our home dashboard and I'm currently on a PayPal Braintree demo account. I'm in the administrator's role. And before I actually jump into a specific transaction, I want to set the scene up a little bit here. So let's say we as a company sell mattresses. So we have a few different ways we can do that. We have our own stores. We also have an online store, and we do sell as a wholesaler to other mattress resellers. So now let's take a look at one method of payment processing, which would be through a credit card. So if we start in our own stores, obviously customers can come into our store. There's a point of sale system that works with Braintree. So they swipe their credit card, that purchase happens as a cash transaction. It then immediately comes into NetSuite and it generates that cash transaction record. So that's pretty straightforward. You can also have the online site. A customer goes on the site, puts in their credit card information, a transaction is generated, we ship them a mattress. That's all very straightforward. So that really happens in the background. Once you've set up the Payment Braintree app, that's all really gonna happen on automatic when those sales occur. But let's take a look at a third example where another reseller, let's say they're called Mom and Pop Mattresses, and they call us because they wanna purchase 10 mattresses. So they call up one of our sales reps and we want to generate this order in NetSuite. So let's take a look at how we would do this. So up here we can generate a new record for an order, but I actually have one already pulled up here. So I'm gonna click on this. And you can see here on this sales order, we have the customer already selected. So this Guest Shopper 26 is really our mom and pop mattress reseller. And if I come down here, we can select an item. So let's say they want to order 10 of our handcrafted queen beds. So we click on the item and I come down to quantity and they wanted 10 of them. So I select 10, it updates the total amount, 14,000, and I can hit add on that item. So now we have the order selected and we can come up here to billing. So obviously we have terms, just the basic setup in the top. So if they wanted to have some sort of a 5% term, they could set that up here. But in this case, we're going to do a credit card process. So we're going to come down to payment in the sublist and we're going to go to payment options. So we don't have any selected. So we're going to add their credit card information. They've told us over the phone. So we're going to authorize that credit card payment. So we'll hit new on this and we're basically making a new payment method for this customer. And we have payment card selected, so that's fine. We'll do payment method is Visa. We could put in a memo if needed. We can also select to have this preserved on file if the customer is fine with having their credit card info stored here. And we can come down to the payment card number. So in this case, the credit card we're going to be using is 4 and then 15 ones. And then the expiration date, we're just going to select. Obviously, it would be relevant to whatever their expiration date is. We have the card brand as Visa, which is correct. And this is a credit card. So I'm going to hit save on this information. So we now have their credit card in this transaction, and we're going to put in the credit card security code. Now, there are other features here. I'm not doing a full tutorial on this app. I'm really just showing some of the features and how it works in general. So I'm going to leave this as is. This is some of the basic setup, so that's totally fine. So with this payment information now stored, as well as the item, we can actually come down here and we can hit save. All right. and we have that transaction confirmed. So that was, keep in mind, that was a sales order. So we haven't actually captured that money. We've simply authorized that credit card for the use of that full amount, right? That $14,795 was authorized. And the way we can actually check that is if we come down here, we're going to go back over to billing. We now have these additional sublists that are included. So we have payment events. We can see this is the sales order, and we can see that it was in fact authorized. We can see the credit card that was used. It was in this case accepted, and the operation was successful. Now, if there was some issue, we can always click on this view details hyperlink, and we can pull up, and this gives us a lot of the information that is regarding this payment event. So if we come down here, for example, this details section right here, if there was an error, it will provide some information there. And we can come down to the raw response here, and this would provide some additional data about why the payment didn't process or what hitch it might have run into. So this is a great place to come to troubleshoot if you're running into problems. So we're going to close that for now because the operation was successful. There was no problem. We can also come over here to authorization event, and we can see that it was in fact authorized. So that we can also see the time that it occurred. And this is important to note, the expiry date, because keep in mind when you're dealing with transactions and banks, there are limits to how long an authorization is valid for. So in this case, it's about a week. And over that time, let's say you authorize the card, but don't actually capture it within a week, it would then expire and you'd have to do a reauthorization, which we'll get into in 1 second. So for now, you can see it was authorized. You can see the amount here on the far right, and that was all fine. So we can now come up to the top here and we can go to bill. And that brings us straight to the cash sale, right? We're not going to an invoice because we already have that credit card information saved in there and there's no terms set up. So it brings us straight to a cash sale record. It fills in all the information from that sales order, like the customer, the date, also the items. We can see we've got these 10 beds here, and we can go to billing. We can make sure that the billing information is correct, right? We have this payment from this particular order. We can see what credit card we're using, how it's going to be processed. So we've got the basic information there. And really all we need to do to capture this full amount is to go down here to save, and it will save this cash sale record, and it will actually generate that payment and that capture for the authorized credit card. So that's really the simplicity of how that works. Now, I don't want to hit save on this because I want to take advantage of this moment to show an additional feature that is allowed here. So the additional feature we're going to take a look at is a partial capture. So we could just do a normal full capture, which in most cases is going to be what you're going to do. But in some cases, you might want to just capture out of, let's say, the 10 beds, maybe we just want to capture 6 of them. So let's actually do that here. We're going to go to the items itself, and I'm going to click on the quantity here, and I'm going to change it to 6. And I'll hit OK on that. So you can see by hitting 6, it changed the amount to $8,000, right? It brought that $14,000 down to just $8,000, the only amount regarding those 6 beds. Now, if we hit save, you can see it confirmed that transaction was completed. And so for $8,800, we have captured a sale, a cash sale for that amount. So if I come over to the billing subtab, you can see we had the authorization. The authorization was for the full amount, $14,000 and change. And then we have the cash sale, which was a partial capture for only $8,000. So let's say we've done that capture. Now we want to do a capture on the last 4 beds. Maybe for some reason we only shipped 6 beds at first. We wanted to capture that. Then we got them the last 4 beds. Now we want to capture the rest of it because we still have an authorization that's valid on that full amount. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to go back to this original sales order. So we'll click on this sales order. It opens up this second window, and you can see, so this is the sales order that had all 10 beds. But if we go to next bill on this, so I'm going to click here. This is the exact same thing I just did, but I only captured 6 beds in that instance. So what ends up happening is it knows 6 of those beds were already captured, so it only has the 4 that are left to be captured, and it automatically pulls up. You can see right here, out of that full $14,700, we only have $5,900 left to capture. So it automatically fills that in. If I scroll down, we can see in the items, the quantity is only 4 remaining out of that total of 10 that you can see here. So again, all we have to do to have the final capture of those 4 is come down here, hit save. It confirms it was successful. We can come down to the billing subtab, and you can see the capture authorization right here for the $5,900. So at that point, we've done 2 partial captures, and in that way captured the full amount for the 10 beds that was originally ordered. So that's a great example of a feature that Braintree has that a lot of other payment processors don't allow, that concept of authorizing and doing several partial captures. Let's take a look at another example where we're actually going to do a reauthorization. So I'm going to close this transaction, and I'm going to pull up over here. I have another sales order that's already mocked up, and this is very similar to what we just looked at. We can see we have the same, our guest shopper, which is our mom and pop mattress reseller. And if I come down here, we're going to add, we've got this platform bed that's added. So in this case, I just want to do 1. So it's 1 bed. And let's go to the billing information. I've already put in the billing information, so this was a credit card info that they gave us. And all we're going to do is come down to the bottom and we're going to hit save. So far, this is identical to what we did in the first example. We just have an order and we are authorizing this credit card. So that was successful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to go to billing. And you can see this authorization was accepted. But like I pointed out in one of the earlier examples, the expiry date is on the 10th of February. So there's a few different reasons you would want to do a reauthorization. If you passed the expiration date, of course, your original authorization would be voided and you would need to do a reauthorization. You might also run into a situation where something about the order has changed. Maybe the value of the purchase has gone up by some amount and you need to reauthorize for a different amount. So let's take that example for now. Let's come in here and we're going to change the authorization amount and reauthorize. Again, maybe the product is now more expensive, or maybe some additional feature was added, like a bow was tied around it, that's going to increase the cost of this thing. So if I come over to payment events, I'm actually going to just come back to the original order here, and I'll open that up. And I'm actually first going to go into edit mode for this transaction because I have to make this modification. All right, so I'm in edit mode and I'm actually gonna come down to the bottom here and I'm gonna go to billing in the subtab. And on the sub list, I'm gonna go to payment. So we're trying to reauthorize for this payment method. So we have this Visa card, which is our payment method. And if we wanna reauthorize, we're actually gonna come over here to the authorization amount. And let's say instead of what we usually have, which is this $1,295, let's just add $5 to say that it is now $5 more expensive. So we're gonna do $1,300 there. I'll click on that. And we're gonna come down here now that we've put in that new authorization amount, and I'm gonna hit save. So I'm now saving this record with a different authorization amount. So that was successful. And now it's actually a 2-step process. So I've saved that information and then I need to now go reauthorize. And I do that by coming up to this button here and I click on reauthorization. Now, when you do that, it's kind of funny because it doesn't look like it's loading. It kind of puts you in a little bit of a hold, but you basically have to wait for this pop-up window to come up. And now it's enabled the reauthorization to occur. So it says it's been triggered and I simply click OK. And then it will automatically refresh this record. And then if we come to the bottom here, if I go back to billing, and I'm gonna go over to the sublist on authorization events, if I click on that, I can actually see that that original authorization that I had for $1,295, so that one was the original authorization, and then I edited it to add that $5 to make it $1,300. The first one got voided because you can no longer use that one, and now we have a second one for $1,300. So in that case, I successfully changed that authorization to include the extra $5. Now, before I continue, I do want to point out, I usually make NetSuite tutorials. This sort of product review video is relatively new to this channel. So if you're finding this interesting, please hit that like button and let me know down in the comments below what product or NetSuite feature you'd like me to review next. In the meantime, let's get back into this. So we successfully did this reauthorization, and I'm going to close this record. And I'm actually going to generate a new order, because the last thing I want to show you here is how to set up ACH. And it's relatively simple. I'm just going to touch on it. If I come over here and I'm going to, just like in the others, I'm going to add my guest shopper 26. So I'll put in that information here. Okay, and let's say our guest shopper wants to buy a Yao bed. Good, so we have a quantity of 1, and that's fine. So we're gonna go up to billing, and if we wanted to do an ACH payment, so we would come over here. Now in this case, it assumed guest shopper is gonna use their Visa again, but we don't wanna do that. We wanna go to this new, and instead of payment card, we're gonna go to, you can see we have the payment card, and also keep in mind we have these tokens. And I didn't mention that earlier, but you have not just payment credit cards as well as the ACH and the external PayPal site, but keep in mind you also have that token option. And PayPal Braintree has a lot of different features to allow for the use of tokenization so that you can use these cards, or let's say an external PayPal site, you're able to regularly use that information multiple times. And again, for the sake of this video, I'm not diving super deep into that, but understand that they do have those capabilities. But in this example, I'm going to click ACH, Automated Clearinghouse. Again, we're going to select ACH. And we've got a couple additional features that are a little unique to this. So limit, for example, you can put a limit of what the ACH transfer can be. So maybe that's $2 million, maybe that's more, whatever is relevant for you. And also we have all this bank information. So keep in mind, again, in most cases, it's going to be a business to business transaction. You're going to be on the phone with that person or in some way get their relevant bank information, make sure that's fully authorized, put in the account type, etc. All of that necessary information so you can make the transaction. So those are just a few of the features that PayPal Braintree offers. Now let's take a look at the positives as well as some of the limitations of using a product like Braintree. Well, first off, on the positive side, as I've mentioned in this video, it can do things like re-authorizations, partial captures, as well as over captures, which would be you've authorized a certain amount and you actually now need to capture an amount that's slightly larger than that. It does include that feature as well. So those are features that are not included in a lot of other payment processors. And if you have a need for them, that might be a great reason to use something like Braintree. Also keep in mind that the product is free to purchase. You get it on the Suite App Marketplace. The installation is relatively simple. It probably takes about a day to set up unless you have maybe an online store or point of sale systems that might take a little bit more work to get fully synced up. But in general, it's not super difficult. And keep in mind, just like normal PayPal, you're not going to be paying for the product. It's going to be a fee on each transaction. So that's all things you should think with. Also keep in mind, this video is not sponsored by PayPal. I don't make any money from PayPal. This is an independent review. So let's also take a look at some of the limitations and the downsides of using a product like Braintree. And really the main thing to keep in mind is what are your needs from a payment processor? If you don't need things like re-authorizations, some more intricate tokenization features or partial captures, etc., then you might want to go with a different payment processor that's simpler. There's a lot out there. There's Stripe, etc. You can go with one of those options. Or on the other side of the coin, if you need something that is quite extensive from a payment processing standpoint, and you want to have a lot of the support that comes along with that, you might want to go with something like maybe CyberSource or one of these payment processors that really brings a lot to the table, but at a premium. It's definitely more expensive to go with one of those other options like CyberSource. So it really just depends on what your needs are for payment processing. Another point I'd like to bring up is that if you are going on, let's say, an online store and a customer is trying to pay using PayPal, they're not able to just do it on your site. It's not like a little PayPal window will open up that they can fill in their information. It's going to kick them over to an external PayPal site where they have to fill in the information and actually make the purchase. So I know Braintree is trying to figure out an integration where it can just occur on the site, but as of this moment, that is not a feature that is currently available. So that's your review on PayPal Braintree. If you found this video helpful, please hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.